So join me now, Representative Khanna. Thank you, Representative. Appreciate you joining us. Good to see you.
Always good to see you, Don.
So listen, forget about politics, of this for a minute if you can. What is this ruling going to mean for the future of this planet?
Well, I think Justice Kagan summed it up best in her dissent. She said, this is a court that doesn't know much about climate change. I mean, they're not this. And they're basically handcuffing the EPA. They're saying the EPA can't have emissions regulations on coal plants system-wide. They can't have caps. So this is going to mean that there's going to be no regulation, no caps on carbon emissions, and it's devastating for the fight against climate.
So, Representative, the Health and Human Services Secretary, Javier Becerra, called the decision a public health disaster, and the data shows that people of color are most impacted by the climate crisis. 2021 report from the American Lung Association shows people of color are 61% more likely than white people to live in a county with a failing grade for at least one pollutant. Are you worried that this ruling will disadvantage these communities even more?
Yes, Don, and your question gets to the heart of the problem and why this court has a crisis of legitimacy. The reason we have Congress make these decisions is that they are more representative. They have representatives from Black communities, from Latino communities, from around the country. You have a court that is completely unrepresentative, that is not elected. And for 6 unelected people to make decisions on climate and take that power away from Congress, take that power away from the president who is appointing the EPA is just flat out wrong. And this is a court that's disconnected and really is abrogating to itself power and taking it away from democratic decision making.
A crisis of legitimacy or just unpopular?
No, it's a crisis of legitimacy. There are times that a court can make counter-majoritarian decisions as a check on majoritarian power. But this is a court that has totally been oblivious to any sense of public sentiment in modern life. I mean, they're oblivious when it came to taking away freedoms on Roe versus Wade. They're oblivious when it comes to talking about possibly taking away the right for gay marriage, possibly even Justice Thomas writing about taking the right away for contraception. That's why I've come out for term limits, and the president's own commission has suggested term limits. I mean, why should people who were appointed 40 years ago be making decisions today for our democracy about fundamental rights?
I just want to ask you this because, listen, it sounds almost similar to when Democrats say a crisis of legitimacy, similar to the former president saying just because he didn't agree with something that it was illegitimate, that it was fake, or that it was, it's not, you don't think that that's a slippery slope that you're going down by saying that the Supreme Court is a crisis of legitimacy? I mean, it may not be very popular.
Well, I think Lincoln said that about the Dred Scott court. FDR said that about the Lochner court. The difference is I'm not saying go disobey the Supreme Court's decisions. I'm not saying that just because the Supreme Court ruled this way that somehow we have to defy the decisions. What I'm saying is this court no longer has the confidence of the American public, and we need to have fundamental reform. And like Lincoln called out the Dred Scott court and FDR called out the Lochner court, we need to be campaigning against this court. I mean, this court, we the people, the American people, who get to decide about fundamental rights and get to decide about the Constitution, get to direct policy about climate. It's not unelected justices who are taking away too much power. And I think they're doing their jobs incorrectly, and we ought to point that out. And they're partisan. They're partisan. They're not some deliberative body. They are following a partisan agenda, and they're not. They shouldn't be treated as some holier than thou people with some deliberation. They are ideological.
I think there's no denying that it is partisan. I mean, right? When you have a Democratic president or a liberal president, then they nominate liberal and Democratic judges. Same thing with a Republican and conservative president, right? You're right. It is by nature political, the Supreme Court. Thank you, Representative Khanna. I appreciate you appearing. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll be right back.